Hey guys, tonight we are going to slip off our modern worries and wander into a place where steam, stories and scandal all mingle under painted domes, the grand bathhouses of the Byzantine Empire. Picture this, the soft warmth of polished marble beneath your bare feet, the swirl of fragrant oils, a chorus of friendly chatter echoing against ancient tilework. If you think you're ready to conquer the Byzantine bathing scene, let me gently remind you, you probably won't survive. These people have centuries of practice on you, from how they balance bath temperatures to how they gossip while wearing absolutely nothing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're watching from tonight and what time it is there. So please drop your city and local hour in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through a grand archway carved with twisting vines and saints, whose faces have been softened by the damp air for centuries. A thin layer of warm steam hits you straight away, enveloping you like a damp, cozy blanket. The first thing you notice is the pleasant scent, a strange mixture of rosemary, old stone, and that particular sharp tang of mineral water. It almost seems designed to relax you before you even dip a toe in the water. Slipping past the heavy wooden door, you find yourself in a lofty antechamber, decorated with mosaics that sparkle even under the dull winter daylight. Gold tiles gleam next to dusty blues and deep terracotta reds, forming images of animals, plants, and a few geometric designs that are probably meant to guard against the evil eye. Polite yet distant attendant gives you a knowing nod. You can sense he's seen more nakedness than a royal midwife, but he doesn't flinch. It's all routine. You do your best to look nonchalant, though the butterflies in your stomach remind you that Byzantine social rules can be tricky. Historians still argue whether bathhouse staff were truly professional attendants or sometimes just volunteers helping out in exchange for tips and a warm place to gossip. Either way, they know their job. As you shuffle forward, trying not to slip on a polished patch of marble, the floor feels warm, surprisingly so. You realize with a little thrill that the heat is coming from underneath through a hypocaust, an ingenious Roman-inherited system of hot air channels laid beneath the floor. Some lucky worker in the basement, no doubt half-cooked by now, is shoveling wood into a roaring furnace so you can enjoy toasty toes. You glance around the entrance hall. There are benches piled high with linen cloths, some bright white and others a bit grayer with use. Patrons shuffle out of them like soft little ghosts, heads wrapped in towels, carrying a distinct air of relief. A matronly woman carefully counts out her children's sandals while scolding them to behave. They grin, faces pink from hours in the water. Already, you hear a chorus of voices coming from deeper inside. In Byzantine cities, these bathhouses were the public square, the party venue, and the health spa rolled into one. Your heart beats a little faster, realizing you'll soon be joining a scene that might include merchants haggling, politicians whispering, and philosophers pontificating on whether fish really dream when they sleep. Modern historians confirm bathhouses were strictly regulated in some periods, yet surprisingly free in others. That means you'd best behave, but also try to enjoy yourself. Someone bumps your elbow, a flash of bronze and dripping cloth, and apologizes in a dialect you almost recognize. There's something curiously comforting about how the Byzantine Empire stitched together so many cultures, Greek, Roman, Anatolian, Syrian, that even a newcomer could blend in without too much fuss. You're a stranger, sure, but a welcome one. As you look around, you see a large stone basin filled with tepid water for rinsing dusty feet. You nearly laugh thinking about how many miles of goat-strewn streets you might have trudged just to get here. And here you are, about to melt all those worries away. The floor tiles press gently under your solace, each worn smooth by centuries of bathers who came to trade news and sneak in a bit of gentle bragging. Some probably even conspired on royal plots while pretending to scrub their elbows. A flicker of doubt crosses your mind. Should you tip the attendant right now? Historians still debate if tips were offered in advance or after the soak, but the smart money suggests you might want to keep a copper or two in reserve. You shuffle deeper into the changing area, where a few lanterns glow softly, making the golden mosaics shine like stars in a night sky. Warm mist rises everywhere, blurring faces, smoothing hard lines. In that damp haze, everyone looks gentler, calmer, almost like paintings come to life. The bathhouse is already working its gentle magic on you. A place where social classes, languages, and ambitions all melt away in the embrace of hot water and soft air. Even here, you sense the echoes of the Roman Empire, those bathhouse pioneers who taught the Byzantines a thing or two about tile work and temperature control. The air tastes faintly mineral, like licking a coin, and yet you find it refreshing. Your shoulders begin to unknot just standing there, breathing in the calm and hearing the occasional splash beyond the doorway. You realize, with a small grin, that you have absolutely no idea where to begin. But that's fine. The bathhouse doesn't rush you. It welcomes you to wander, to breathe, to ease into its ritual at your own slow, sleepy pace. You hesitate a moment, scanning the steamy half-shadows of the changing hall before shuffling toward a row of polished cedar benches. The sound of water trickling somewhere in the background is almost hypnotic, steady as a clock ticking away your worldly worries. Around you, people are already beginning the slightly awkward but somehow dignified dance of undressing. A young merchant from Antioch carefully folds his garments, keeping a wary eye on a set of gilded clasps that must have cost more than your entire house. Meanwhile, a stout grandmother with silver hair expertly ties up her headscarf before unpinning layer after layer of robes, revealing an impressively embroidered shift beneath. You can't help but grin. Byzantine society may have been obsessed with status outside these walls, but once you step into the bathhouse, everyone is more or less equal, or at least equally exposed. Of course, there is a ritual to disrobing, a way to shed not only your dusty tunic, but the layers of your daily identity. You move carefully, mimicking the other bathers. Shoes off first, then the belt, then the loose outer robe. There's a strange relief in the process, like you're unburdening your mind along with your clothes. Historians still argue whether these locker-like cubicles, cubicula, were a Roman leftover or a purely Byzantine twist, but they were certainly practical. You step into one, noticing the simple wooden pegs and a locked cabinet for valuables. A small copper key dangles from a loop of cord. Probably an invention as advanced as any digital password today. You place your bundle of clothes on a wooden shelf, the scent of warm linen and faint body oils wrapping around you like a hug. You hesitate for a moment, wondering if someone might peek at your more modest undergarments, but then realize no one cares. Everyone here has seen everything before, and if they haven't, they will soon enough. There's a social choreography to all of this. You catch the subtle sideways glances, not mocking, but politely curious. The slight nods of approval for a neatly folded robe, or maybe a teasing grin aimed at someone whose sandals are clearly secondhand. Even in the bathhouse, human nature finds a way to measure, to compare, to rank. But soon the tension lifts. The marble is warm under your feet, heat drifting up from those hidden hypocaust channels. You feel a slow bloom of comfort, as though the bathhouse itself is whispering to you, "Relax, you made it." A group of children scampers through the changing hall, their laughter bouncing off the walls. One small boy clutches a wooden toy horse, so battered its tail is gone. Maybe he'll forget it later, and a kindly attendant will rescue it from a puddle. The Byzantines had a habit of losing things here: rings, combs, trinkets, tiny time capsules for future archaeologists. You listen to the clinking of copper coins as a man pays an attendant for a linen cloth rental. The cloth is surprisingly soft, woven from a blend of linen and perhaps a hint of wool, giving it just enough plushness to dab away sweat. There's even a rumor, still hotly debated among scholars, that these cloths sometimes carried secret, political messages embroidered along their edges. The bustle of disrobing grows steady and rhythmic like a quiet tide. No one seems rushed. You wonder if modern gyms and spas might learn something from this slower, more graceful approach. After all, who needs speed when you've come to soak? As you finish undressing, a small mirror on the wall surprises you. Byzantine glasswork. Was usually fuzzy, but this one is polished well enough to catch a hazy reflection. You give yourself a once-over, realizing how silly you look compared to these experienced bathers who practically strut around wrapped in nothing but confidence. You try to stand tall, reminding yourself that nobody is here to judge. In a place where senators and stonemasons stand side by side, the usual social hierarchy gets a bit blurry. Just like that mirror dot, it takes a moment to tie the linen cloth around your waist in the proper way. One slip and you'll flash a little. More than you bargained for. But finally, with a deep breath, you step out of your cubicle and move toward the next chamber. The doorway is framed with arches tiled and repeating crosses, and the floor slopes gently to drain the constant flow of water. A fresh swirl of steam billows through, carrying hints of myrtle and laurel leaf. It smells as soothing as a grandmother's kitchen if your grandmother simmered medicinal herbs. Instead of soup. Someone behind you mutters a friendly watch. Your step, as a slick patch of marble glistens ominously. You nod your thanks and tiptoe carefully onward. Ahead, you glimpse the great tepidarium, its surface glowing under skylights that catch even the faint winter sun. The faint echo of conversation draws you forward, along with the promise of warm water and maybe a gentle snooze afterward. The changing hall recedes behind you, and you feel lighter, freer, as if the simple act of stripping away your clothes has also stripped away your worries. You're ready now, ready to step into the warm pool, to let the bathhouse wrap you in its steamy embrace, to leave the outside world and its endless dust and chatter far behind. Somewhere a bell chimes softly, marking the hour. But here, time moves differently, rolling along with the water's flow, unhurried and gentle. And you've only just begun. The heat wraps around you like a long-lost friend as you slip carefully into the tepidarium. The water is somewhere between warm and hot, the perfect temperature to coax a sigh straight from your chest. You lower yourself inch by inch, feeling the mineral-salted liquid loosen the knots in your shoulders. The bathhouse floor is tiled with smooth mosaics, an endless pattern of looping vines and birds that seems to swirl the longer you look at it. Maybe it's just the rising steam making the world a bit fuzzy, but you let yourself go blurry too. A couple of older men chat nearby, voices so low and calm they sound like a lullaby. They talk about grain shipments, which port is crowded, weather. The price of olive oil is holding steady. It's the sort of drowsy, gentle conversation that could lull you straight to sleep. One of them gestures toward the bathhouse's furnace rooms, telling a story about how the fire tenders sometimes sneak a quick wash while on duty. Historians still argue whether those workers were allowed to bathe during their shift, or had to wait until after closing time. Either way, it's a cozy mental picture. The man stoking the fires finally slipping into the pool after a long day of shoveling wood. You test the water again, toes fanning out against the floor tiles. Heat bubbles up from the channels below, drawn through hidden ducts that snake like veins beneath the entire bathhouse. It's a marvel of engineering, this hypocaust, inherited from the Romans and perfected by the Byzantines. A simple idea. Hot air turned into an art form of consistent, soothing warmth. The air above the pool is thick with a tangy mineral scent, mixed with a whiff of olive oil drifting from someone's skin. You wonder, half amused, how many amphorae of oil must pass through these bathhouses each week. Some patrons rub it on before they enter the pool, others after, depending on their skin or their superstition. Modern spa enthusiasts would no doubt marvel at how well the Byzantines balanced temperatures. They had precise strategies, heating the bathhouse in sections, keeping fires constantly burning, watching for drafts. One slip and the whole system might feel chilly. You imagine the poor soul who had to fix a clogged hypocaust pipe, probably sweating even more than the bathers above. You duck under for a moment, letting the warm water slick your hair back and come up blinking through the fragrant fog. All around, people talk in soft voices. There's a gentle hush here, almost like a library, except no one is reading. Instead, they're soaking up stories, news, gossip, the day's small triumphs and worries, all made gentler in the haze. You drift closer to the center, where the water feels deepest and the echoes grow more mellow. A woman nearby gently massages her friend's shoulders, showing a kindness that feels timeless. A boy swims clumsily in circles, giggling when his father splashes him in return. For a moment, you allow yourself to simply float. You close your eyes and sense the centuries layered around you. The same sounds, the same drifting steam, the same patterns on the walls. They have seen countless lives pass through, all as fragile and hopeful as yours. A splash startles you, but it's just an eager bather finding their footing. You smile and let your muscles loosen again. Even the act of relaxing takes practice, it seems. You remember the polished mirror back in the changing room, how uncertain you felt there. Here, the water seems to wash that worry away. Nobody stares, nobody measures. It's just you, a borrowed linen cloth and the peaceful hum of voices drifting like a soft breeze. Someone nearby hums an old hymn, maybe a church melody, maybe something older. Historians still argue whether Byzantine bathhouses allowed musicians to play regularly or only on holidays. But there's no question that music belonged here. Rising with the steam, you let the rhythm of the song sink into your bones, each note smoothing out another crumpled corner of your mind. A tiredness seeps through you, not the sharp exhaustion of daily chores, but the gentle kind that comes with total safety. A trio of bathhouse attendants wander past, balancing small copper bowls of herbal oil. The scent is earthy and sharp, reminding you of pine forests after rain. You breathe it in deeply, filing the memory away for the next time you stand stuck in a crowded street somewhere. Wishing for peace out here, peace feels easy. You can feel the marble ledge beneath your fingertips, slick but warm, as if the building itself is breathing with you. Maybe it is. After centuries of soaking up conversation, laughter, tears, and dreams, these walls probably know more about humans than any scroll ever could. You close your eyes again, letting the water swirl you in a gentle embrace, trusting that time. For once we'll leave you alone. No coins to count, no errands to run, no roads to travel. Just the soothing warmth of the tepidarium, the echo of voices half lost in the mist, and a strange but welcome sense that you belong right here, drifting, with the water like one of those painted birds on the floor. You ease yourself from the tepidarium, skin already flushed and heart beating a bit more slowly. A gentle shiver passes through you as cooler air brushes against your damp skin, but you push forward, drawn by the promise of even deeper warmth. Ahead, the caldarium waits, the true heart of the Bathhouse. The door into the caldarium feels like crossing into a sunken dream. A wave of heat wraps around you instantly, heavier and thicker than the tepidarium, making the air swirl with a syrupy softness. It's a heat that clings, nestles into your bones, and reminds you that you have muscles you'd nearly forgotten about. The floor here is hotter, even the mosaic tiles radiating their own low, steady warmth. Careful not to burn your toes, you step onto a smooth stone bench lining the edge of the pool. Steam rises in fragrant billows, carrying the sharp aroma of myrtle and bay. You pause, breathing it in, almost dizzy from its depth. Around you, figures glow faintly in the mist, half hidden and dreamlike. It's as if you've stepped into a half-real painting where people shift in and out of view. A merchant pours a dipper of water over his shoulders, the droplets hissing against the hot marble. An elderly scholar sits in deep contemplation, fingers tracing invisible letters on his knee as he rehearses a long-forgotten poem. There's a comfortable hush in the caldarium, though every so often a burst of laughter rolls across the water. You catch the tail end of a joke about a donkey losing a sandal, surely an everyday annoyance even centuries ago. You can't help but smile, imagining that donkey clopping across slippery Byzantine streets. You lower yourself into the hot water, careful not to slip, and feel your pores blossom open in a glorious, sleepy relief. This is where the Byzantines truly perfected their bathhouse magic, an ideal blend of scalding water and soothing atmosphere. Modern spa designers still envy their consistency. Historians still argue whether the caldarium was considered a place of cleansing or a place of social boasting, since important deals and alliances were sometimes made here, surrounded by nothing but steam and skin. But you sense it was probably both. As always, humans managing to mix business and pleasure in the same breath. You slide deeper into the water, letting it cradle your spine. The caldarium is known to sweat every last care out of a person, and you can see why. The ache in your legs, that knot between your shoulder blades, the sense of never quite doing enough, all of it softens, dissolves, becomes something far away. Your mind wanders to those fiery furnaces again, the laborers, stoking and feeding them hour after hour so you can have this moment of stillness. Somewhere beneath your floating body, a small army of sweat-streaked workers is probably complaining about burned eyebrows, goat hair kindling that won't catch, and 1,000 other annoyances. The caldarium, for all its glory, is a triumph. Built on their patient toil, someone next to you sighs so deeply you'd think they'd just been handed a bag of gold. A young woman with braids glistening from olive oil tips her head back, eyes closed, mouth curved in a blissful half-smile. The heat seems to free even the hardest thoughts, melting them into a harmless puddle. The steam swirls thicker now, clinging to the walls and ghostly shapes. You can trace the outline of a dolphin mosaic under the waterline, its blue tiles worn and dulled by centuries of bathers' toes. It seems to leap and dart every time the water ripples, as if forever trying to escape. One bather nearby is explaining to a companion that drinking hot water before entering the caldarium is supposed to protect the heart. You raise an eyebrow at that bit of health wisdom, but hey, historians still argue whether Byzantine medicine was closer to scientific practice or hopeful magic. Maybe both. A faint metallic chime rings out, marking another hour's passing. You barely register it, too lulled by the slow pull of warmth. Time slides away from you in here, replaced by the beat of your own heart and the patient swirl of the water. A couple of children scurry past the door, giggling as they sneak a peek inside. The caldarium isn't usually a place for young ones. The heat is just too intense, but their wide-eyed curiosity is as timeless as the building itself. As you lean your head back, the roof high above seems lost in vapor. Great stone ribs arch into darkness, supporting an enormous dome that stands silent witness to every conversation. Every sigh, every secret floated out into the humid air. It is impossible not to feel small in here, yet in the gentlest way. You are one soft note in a long song, echoing back over 1,000 years of steam. Water and dreams. For now, you surrender to that feeling, letting the warmth wash every doubt from your skin. If the tepidarium was a welcome, then this is a baptism into a quieter, kinder world. You sense you could stay for hours, turning soft as a honey cake, drifting into the half-sleep that comes with perfect heat and perfect peace. For a moment, you almost forget that beyond these painted tiles, a whole empire stirs with worries. Here, none of that matters. Here, you are as calm as stone. Your skin tingles as you climb carefully out of the caldarium, a moment of hesitation catching you as the cooler air hits, a shock after that dreamy steam. You stand for a heartbeat on the warm marble, half dripping, half dazed, wondering if you really want to go through with the next step. Because here it comes, the cold plunge. You shuffle forward, towel clutched for dear life, toward a stone pool so calm it looks like a mirror. Its surface barely moves, save for the faint swirl of a dropped olive leaf. It has a bluish, almost icy tint that makes your toes curl just looking at it. And you wonder, truly, what sort of person invented this part of the ritual? Maybe some ancient prankster who decided all that lovely, soul-melting heat needed a shock to balance it out. Historians still argue whether the plunge was inspired by Roman military training or local folk cures for arthritis, but everyone agrees the cold bath was essential to keep blood moving. You stare at the water, wondering if your heart is ready to move quite that enthusiastically. One deep breath. You steel yourself. Another dot, and then you step in. A gasp bursts out before you can stop it, the chill hitting you like a slap of wind. On a winter mountain. You nearly scramble back out, but no. You hold steady, letting the cold wrap you in its fierce grip. It bites into your skin, making every nerve jolt awake. It feels almost painful, but somehow good. You sense every pore closing tight, your limbs shaking, but in a strangely thrilling way. It is as if the water is reminding you that you're alive, that you have a beating heart, warm and strong. Under all those sleepy layers, a young man nearby bursts into laughter as he plunges under, coming up with a roar that rattles the roof. You grin despite yourself. The shock of cold seems to break away any remaining stiffness, cracking your tension like brittle pottery. Somewhere behind you, an old woman calmly steps in, her face serene as moonlight. She's done this 1,000 times, it seems, ignoring the cold like a mild breeze. She nods toward you, a look that says, yes, you will survive. Your breath comes ragged, but then steadies. You stand there, shoulder deep, eyes wide as coins. The stone walls around you seem to glow with a faint sheen of condensation, catching lamplight in slow, glittering trickles. That biting chill, this is the finishing stroke of the bathhouse cycle. All the sweat and fog from the caldarium is washed away, leaving you refreshed, tingling, awake. You shiver and shift, letting the icy water swirl around your waist, hips, shoulders. For a moment, you almost feel like you've joined a river, a winter torrent surging through a quiet forest. One voice drifts nearby, claiming the plunge prevents headaches. Another insists it helps you sleep better. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's all nonsense. Historians still argue how much medical truth lay behind Byzantine bathing theories, but you can't deny the tingling thrill is real. A child shrieks playfully as his father dunks him with a gentle splash. You see more bathers gathering the courage to dip in, all wearing the same determined, wary look you carried moments ago. The stone steps leading into the plunge pool are slick, but well designed, carved with a rough texture to grip your toes. No accidents here. Even in their chilly mischief, the Byzantines were clever engineers. You raise your eyes to the ceiling, where a small oculus, a round window, lets in a shaft of faint sunlight. The light strikes the rippling water, throwing dancing patterns across the walls. It is beautiful, in a stark, bracing way, almost like a song with no melody but perfect rhythm. For a moment, you feel fierce, like you could march across Anatolia barefoot. That shock has peeled away layers of worry, leaving you raw but strong. But you know you can't stay here long. The cold is a reminder, a punctuation mark, never the entire paragraph. So with one last jolt, you move back to the edge, climbing. Out slowly, knees trembling in the open air. A small towel awaits, mercifully warm, handed over by an attendant who looks thoroughly unimpressed by all your drama. You wrap it tight around yourself, heart still hammering, and as you breathe out, you can sense how your body has been renewed. Warm, cold, warm, the cycle works like a gentle rebirth. Even your mind feels clearer, sharper, as if someone rinsed off a stubborn worry that clung to you for years. A woman next to you chuckles at your rattled face. Feels good, doesn't it? She says with a grin. You have to admit it. Yes, it does. In a place like this. No matter how grand or how humble you arrived, you leave with the same tingling sense of having conquered something. The Byzantines knew a thing or two about making even discomfort feel like luxury. You gather your courage, one more deep breath, and head onward toward the next ritual in this temple of water and steam, knowing you've survived the plunge and might even look forward to it next time. You move away from the cold plunge, every nerve tingling like tiny bells, and drift into the next part of the Byzantine bathhouse ritual, the massage. The gentle warmth of the air feels almost decadent against your freshly chilled skin, and you follow the faint scent of olive oil and herbs toward a low archway. Inside, a trio of attendants waits, arms crossed, towels slung casually over their shoulders. One of them, built like a marble statue come to life, raises an eyebrow in your direction. You nod, half defensive, half curious, and he gestures for you to lie down on a slab of polished stone. The slab is heated. Thank the bathhouse engineers for that, so the chill doesn't bite at you again. You settle onto its surface, feeling the smooth stone hug your tired muscles. Moments later, warm oil drizzles across your shoulders, making you shiver, then melt. The scent is something between green olives and crushed laurel leaves, a smell that seems to travel right to the sleepy corners of your mind. The masseur begins to knead your back with a firmness that is gentle and yet unstoppable, like a rolling sea. Every knot, every tiny protest in your muscles seems to be coaxed out with a methodical rhythm, and then comes the strigil, a curved metal scraper that looks more like a kitchen tool than a spa device. You feel the smooth, cool blade sweep across your skin, gathering up the dirt and old oil loosened by the massage. The sensation is surprisingly pleasant, like having an itch scratched in just the right place. Historians still argue whether strigils were considered strictly hygienic or had a ritual symbolism, but here, under the gliding arc of polished bronze, it feels purely practical. The gentle scraping leaves your skin soft, tingling, almost new. A small bowl of warm water is poured along your back, washing away every leftover speck. You sigh, thinking how even your great-grandparents never had such pampering. This is no quick rinse. This is a ceremony of the body, a gentle but thorough farewell to all the dust and grime of the world. Outside, you catch snippets of conversation drifting through the steamy air. The bathhouse talk is full of news. Whose shipment of silk arrived late, whose son is getting married, whose neighbor was fined for a stolen goat. The political and the personal swirl together, softened by the shared nudity and the strange intimacy of steam. A merchant nearby tells a dramatic tale of having to bribe a customs officer with a wheel of cheese. You almost laugh, picturing a harried man trading cheese for safe passage through a Byzantine port. Above you, The ceiling is decorated with a gentle swirl of mosaics, tiny blue tesserae dancing among golden borders. You let your eyes follow their pattern, a dreamy spiral that seems to pull you deeper into calm. The masseur's hands keep working, pressing with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. You can almost hear your body giving up its last tightness with a series of sighs. A sharper scent joins the laurel and olive. Goat fat, possibly mixed with beeswax, used to help the skin stay soft. At first it seems odd, even a bit pungent, but soon the warmth of the oil blends the scent into something richer, almost sweet. You think of how many Byzantine bathers lay right here centuries before, experiencing the same faint goat fat aroma. If the strigil is the chorus of this ritual, then the goat fat is the odd little verse. One of the attendants cracks a joke about a senator who once fell asleep on this slab, snoring so hard he nearly drowned in the rinse water. You chuckle alone, imagining the poor man jolting awake, convinced he'd been possessed. Historians still debate if senators received special massage privileges or had to line up with everyone else, but you suspect even emperors would have craved this simple, soothing service. The masseur gently stretches your arms, coaxing your joints open with a practiced ease. Your spine clicks lightly, so satisfying you nearly cheer, and the attendant nods, clearly pleased with his work. There's a strange, unspoken language here. One squeeze means loosen up, one tap means turn over, and a soft pat signals all done. You respond without thinking, falling into this centuries-old code like a natural. Somewhere deeper in the bathhouse, you hear the faint patter of water running down a carved lion's head spout, a constant background lullaby. The marble beneath you stays warm, steady, solid, a kind of friend you never knew you needed. Your eyes flutter shut as the final passes of the strigil sweep down your arms, wiping away every last trace of the outside world. You breathe deep, grateful and content, knowing you will never look at a simple bath the same way again. The attendant steps away, letting you rest a moment as if to say, take all the time you need, and you do, letting your mind float in that soft pause, hovering between fully awake and dreamily adrift, savoring this small, perfect quiet. You sit up slowly, still a bit wobbly from the massage and the strigil's gentle scrape, and slide off the heated stone slab. The marble under your feet feels pleasantly warm again, soothing after that bracing cold plunge. You gather the towel around your shoulders, grateful for a moment to catch your breath. And then you hear it, the steady hum of conversation and the rhythmic snip-snip of scissors. You follow the sound, curiosity leading you toward a corner of the bathhouse reserved for the barbers. Stepping through another archway, you find a row of wooden chairs, each occupied by a patron getting a shave or a trim, their faces covered in fragrant lather. A faint smell of soap, mixed with olive oil and a dash of clove, hangs in the air. The barbers work with calm confidence, their bronze razors glinting in the lamplight. You settle onto a nearby bench, watching the show unfold. This is where reputations are polished just as smoothly as faces, a place to learn what ships arrived late, which tax collector fell from favor, and who was suddenly seen with whom. One elderly man boasts about his grandsons becoming scribes for a local bishop, while another complains about grain prices yet again. The barber hums quietly, turning the conversation here, steering it there. Like a gentle captain navigating a social sea. It's almost mesmerizing. The easy banter and soft scrape of razors against skin. Some historians still argue whether barbers also acted as unofficial spies, collecting bits of gossip for city officials or local nobles. You suspect it's entirely possible. Where else would people speak so freely, half-naked, and lulled by warm air? Your attention is caught by a young man who gets his head completely shaved, explaining he plans to become a monk. A barber skillfully smooths the last patch of fuzz from his scalp with steady hands, then pats him dry with a linen cloth. The would-be monk beams as serene as a freshly washed cat. Nearby, another barber fusses with a pot of warm oil, smoothing down a tricky cowlick. For a middle-aged merchant, the man brags about having survived 3 pirate raids without losing a single shipment. You grin at that. Byzantine merchants did face their fair share of sea raiders. After all, though historians still argue exactly how often those pirates made it into the Golden Horn itself. The barber's tools catch your eye. Elegant bronze razors, small shears, a few tiny bone combs for finishing touches. Simple, yes, but the skill in their hands turns them into magic wands. A boy not even 10 years old climbs onto a stool for a trim, squirming while his father scolds him to stay still. The barber chuckles, patient as a saint, working around the boy's nervous giggles. You can tell he's done this 1,000 times. You catch your reflection in a polished brass mirror nailed to a wooden pillar. Your hair is damp, your cheeks still flushed, your eyes soft from the massage and the warm air. It's a good face, you think, even if a bit sleepy. The barber closest to you glances over, raising a brow in silent question. Do you want a shave? 2. You consider it, then politely decline, still enjoying the faint olive and goat oil scent clinging to your skin. A pair of older women passes through the barber's corner, laughing as they tease each other about which grandchild will marry first. They head deeper into the bathhouse, voices fading behind you, trailing good-natured jokes. Even the barbers themselves join in the banter. Their hands steady, but their mouths quick, cracking jokes about clumsy bathers slipping in the cold plunge, or about the time the city's prefect nearly lost an eyebrow in a shaving accident. There's a gentle sense of theater here, a public stage where faces are refreshed and stories refreshed with them. A quiet ritual that goes beyond mere grooming, weaving social threads and tiny scandals into each careful swipe of the blade. Historians still debate whether certain barbers held special licenses or whether anyone with a steady hand could set up a stool, but no one argues how central they were to bathhouse life. Here, a shave was never just a shave. It was an excuse to check on friends, trade jokes, hear a bit of news, and leave feeling ever so slightly more powerful. You rise from the bench, giving a polite nod to the barber as you move on. The soft scuff of sandals, the rhythmic snips and hums, the easy laughter, all of it follows you down the next corridor, where more surprises wait in this endlessly layered world. For a moment, you pause, breathing in the warm, soapy air. Last time, grateful for this odd, peaceful theater. Because here, under these mosaics and arches, you see the entire empire reflected in a single, quiet shave. And just like that, you slip back into the whiter hum of the bathhouse, ready for whatever waits beyond. You leave the cheerful chaos of the barber's corner behind and wander deeper into the bathhouse, following a quieter current of voices. Soon you find yourself drawn to an unexpected sanctuary, a reading alcove tucked away behind a carved stone screen. It is a hushed place, made softer by the drifting steam that curls around its archways like lazy cats. Low benches are arranged in gentle curves, each one padded with woven mats, and along the walls sit small cupboards of scrolls. The faint scent of papyrus and lamp oil floats through the air, calming in a way you hadn't anticipated. You pause, listening to the murmur of a few bathers reading aloud in the softest tones. One recites lines of Christian hymns, the next mumbles a snippet of philosophy, while another attempts to puzzle through a love poem that sounds suspiciously new. Historians still argue whether these bathhouse libraries were common across the empire or only in richer urban neighborhoods, but no one denies their charm. The Byzantines prized literacy and learning, and even the humble bather could borrow a scroll to rest the mind while the two would then body soaked. You take a seat on a mat that's just warm enough to soothe your bones and lean back, letting your eyes drift. Over the shelves, titles written in looping Greek script catch your attention. Lives of Saints, bits of classical science, a treatise on the best ways to store dried figs. You grin. Byzantines were nothing if not practical. Why not brush up on your poetry and get tips on keeping your pantry stocked? A teenage boy reads aloud to his father, stumbling a bit over complicated words but carrying on bravely. The father nods in patient encouragement, correcting him gently when needed. It's a tender scene, one that feels so familiar you almost forget you're centuries away from home. The floor here is warm, heated by the same hypocaust that fed the great pools, and the mosaic under your toes shows a parade of dolphins, all mid-leap. Their shapes blur in the lamplight, dancing across the tiles like a dream. Nearby, a young woman leans close to a scroll, mouthing each word with careful reverence. Perhaps it's a prayer. Perhaps a recipe. In a world where paper is precious, each letter has a weight far beyond anything you can imagine on a modern screen. You glance up at the ceiling, a curved dome painted with a night sky. Stars highlighted in flecks of gold leaf. As if to remind every bather that even here, half-naked and damp, you are still beneath heaven's gentle gaze. You pull a scroll from a low shelf, its edges a bit tattered but still proud. The title reads something about Galen's medical theories. The same Galen who tried to explain how black bile made people gloomy. You can practically hear the bathhouse philosophers arguing about that, even now. Historians still debate how much medical knowledge the Byzantines really preserved versus invented from scratch, but you have to admire their confidence. Between dips and hot pools, these folks were ready to fix the entire human body with pigeon droppings and prayers if that's what the scroll recommended. A child scurries in, face still flushed from a swim, and tugs on a small volume of fables. The boy sits cross-legged, reading about clever foxes and foolish crows, giggling now and then as if the animals might jump from the page. The lamps in this alcove burn steadily, their flames flickering but calm. Their small brass bowls hang on iron hooks, giving off a faint crackle that blends perfectly with the distant splash of water outside. It's easy to forget where one sound ends and the other begins. You run your fingers along the soft linen band, wrapped around the scroll, feeling how the fibers have loosened with use. So many hands have turned these pages before you, men and women who came to this bathhouse to wash away their sweat and perhaps a bit of ignorance too. One older man sighs, as he recites a line about patience, as if reminding himself that even the hottest furnace of worry will eventually burn out. You close your eyes, letting those words settle into your own mind like a soothing balm. The swirl of voices around you forms a kind of lullaby, a peaceful hum where knowledge, faith, and curiosity all rest together. You lean back on your mat, half listening, half dreaming, grateful for this hidden corner where books and steam share the same quiet breath. The bathhouse, you realize, is not only a place to clean your body, it is a place to clean your thoughts, to give them new shapes, to soften them and let them drift. And as you leave the reading alcove, you carry that sense of calm with you, stepping once again into the slow current of marble halls, where even the smallest whisper of poetry can find a place to echo forever. The hush of the reading alcove still lingers in your mind as you wander back into the brighter, livelier heart of the bathhouse. This time, you follow a series of playful shouts and splashes which draw you toward the open activity space where bathers gather for games and sports. You pass through a series of arches painted with looping vines and bright birds, then step into a hall whose floor is slightly damp, speckled with stray drops from laughing bathers. The scent here is sharper, fresh sweat, warm marble, a faint hint of olive oil clinging to skin. Here, you see groups of men and boys tossing a leather ball back and forth. their feet skipping across the polished tiles with surprising agility. They shout little challenges, making up rules on the spot. Every slip or fumble is met with gentle teasing that echoes off the walls. One group of older men is hunched over a board game spread out on a flat stone bench. Tiny colored pieces clatter across squares marked with faint lines. You lean closer, trying to follow the rules, but the game seems half improvisation, half theater. Someone jokingly claims the emperor himself once lost a fortune on a bad throw of the dice here. Historians still argue whether dice games were encouraged or politely frowned upon by bathhouse staff, but judging by the laughter, no one here cares. Catch sight of a young girl balancing on one foot, trying to throw a clay hoop onto a peg set in the corner. When she misses, she bursts into giggles and tries again, determined. A kindly matron claps for her, encouraging another attempt. There's an energy here that feels timeless, as if the water and steam have simply carried away every worry, leaving people free to play like children. You wonder how many friendships were born right here, cemented over silly contests and half-won rounds of knucklebones. A pair of cousins get into a light wrestling match on a padded mat, cheered on by a cluster of bathers who clearly know the rules. Their arms lock, twist, slip free while onlookers call out tips in a half-sarcastic, half-helpful chorus. Modern gyms could only dream of this community spirit. There is no judgment here, only a shared willingness to get sweaty and silly and then plunge back into hot water again. You pause near a low bench, where a group is playing a counting game involving beans, sliding them along a shallow carved groove. They squabble about the rules, but soon start laughing so hard they spill the beans everywhere, chasing them across the slick floor. One old man proudly shows off a ball with stitched repairs. You'd think it was a family treasure. Maybe it is. He explains in a booming voice how he once kicked this very ball past a merchant's donkey right through the bathhouse gate, nearly flattening a priest. You grin, picturing the priest's indignant face. The stone walls, still faintly warm from the hypocaust below, carry these stories as if they're woven into the mortar. Laughter here feels bigger, rounder, echoing as if eager to soak into the very walls. A bather shuffles by with a basket of extra game pieces, dropping a few by mistake, then rolling his eyes and picking them up as if this happens every day. Which, you suspect, it might. Historians still debate whether the game served a formal purpose, maybe a way to teach teamwork, maybe a subtle military training, or were purely for joy. Either way, the Byzantines knew how to have fun. Beyond the games, you see a corner where music drifts softly from a small group of flute players. The sweet, piping tones weave through the laughter like a gentle current, as if the bathhouse itself wants to sing lullabies for grown-ups. A woman leans against a column, tapping her foot in rhythm, hair still damp from the tepidarum. Her eyes, close with a small smile, carried away by the melody. It is impossible not to be charmed by it all. The marble, the lantern light, the warm air scented with herbs, and here, in the midst of it, people finding simple joy in games that have barely changed for centuries. You watch one final match of ball tossing, a soft art that lands perfectly in the waiting hands of a proud young player. They cheer as though they just won a war, and for a moment, you believe it. Here in the bathhouse, victories are small and sweet, measured not in coins or power, but in laughter that echoes through the steam. You turn away, heart lighter, grateful for this reminder that sometimes a silly game, a shared grin, or a lost bean is all you need to feel alive again. As you leave the playful chaos of the game hall, a new aroma draws you onward. Warm, comforting, a bit sticky sweet. You follow the scent like a sleepwalker, pulled through a narrow arch where sunlight streams in, catching the glint of copper. Trays piled high with treats. Here, near a corner of the bathhouse, you discover the snack cellars. Their tables are laid with rows of honey-soaked pastries, small bowls of dried fruit pressed with sesame seeds, and earthenware jugs of lightly spiced wine. You feel your stomach rumble in a very human way, suddenly reminded of how much soaking and sweating can drain your energy. One vendor, a cheerful woman with a big smile and quick hands, offers you a honey cake so golden it seems to glow. The syrup drips slowly down your fingers as you taste it, impossibly sweet, warm from sitting near the hypocaust vents, melting like a dream on your tongue. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sweetness flood through you, grateful. Beyond words, historians still argue whether snacks like these were included in the bathhouse entry fee or bought separately, but you sense that no one minded paying a coin or two for such comforting bites. After all, even emperors get hungry. Boy rushes up to buy a small skewer of grilled lamb, his face flushed from play. The vendor scolds him gently about dripping grease on the clean marble, but hands it over with a wink anyway. Nearby, a pair of men haggle politely over a clay jar of pomegranate juice, debating if the fruit came from Bithynia or somewhere even farther east. One claims it cures fatigue, while the other rolls his eyes, insisting it's just a fancy fruit. You imagine the pomegranates bursting open like tiny fireworks, staining fingers and lips with their ruby juice, and almost ask for one yourself. Beyond the honey cakes and pomegranate, baskets of dates, figs, and walnuts tempt you, all artfully arranged as if for a festival. The Byzantines believed food should look as pleasant as it tasted, and you can see why. The sweet sellers gossip among themselves while serving customers, trading tales of missing goats, unfair taxes, and a local magistrate whose donkey refuses to cross bridges. You chuckle at the image of a stubborn donkey snarling city traffic. A kind older man nearby hands a date to a child who seems to have lost his coin, and the vendor pretends not to notice, looking the other way. It's these small kindnesses that stitch the bathhouse community together. Warm, human gestures under the same fragrant roof. A tray of candied quince appears, sparkling with sugar crystals, and you cannot resist. It tastes tart at first, then buttery and smooth, settling gently on your tongue. You breathe out in a happy sigh, marveling at how a simple bite of fruit can feel like a reward after all that bathing and scraping. Modern snack bars might envy this setup. No overpriced soggy sandwiches here, just honest treats made fresh. That morning, steaming gently in the warm air, you wander a bit farther along the food stall, spotting a small clay oven tucked into one wall where someone is toasting flatbreads to a perfect golden brown. They slap each round of dough into place with practiced skill, flipping them so quickly you almost fear they'll burn their fingers. The bread comes out smelling of roasted grain, warm and solid, exactly the kind of comfort a tired bather might crave. You wonder how many business deals were sealed here with a handshake over a shared piece of steaming flatbread. One of the vendors jokes that these treats can cure heartbreak if you eat enough of them, and another adds, they certainly cure bad moods. You grin, chewing slowly, believing it completely. Historians still debate whether bathhouses used food as a tool to keep visitors lingering. The longer you stay, the more you talk, the more you buy. And maybe that was part of the plan. But you sense there's a simpler truth here. After hours of heat, cold, and massage, the body simply asks to be nourished, and the Byzantines knew exactly how to answer. Somewhere a bell sounds again, marking time in that soft, almost dreamlike rhythm of the bathhouse day. It's hard to tell if it's afternoon or nearing dusk, but you find you don't really mind. Here, every hour tastes sweet, feels gentle, and flows on like warm honey. You wipe your fingers on a strip of cloth and thank the vendor, who nods with the kind of practiced smile that welcomes everyone. Then you step away, heart calm and belly full, ready to sink back into the quiet warmth of the bathhouse proper. For a moment, you stand still, breathing in the mix of steam and sugar, and realize this might be one of the simplest luxuries in the world. Clean skin, a calm mind, and a sweet treat. It is enough. The sugary warmth of candied quince still lingers on your tongue as you move away from the food stalls, following the sound of softer conversation. Soon, you find yourself near a carved wooden doorway marked by a delicate painted sign, a discreet reminder that these hours are reserved for women. Here, the bathhouse changes its tone entirely. You slip quietly inside, adjusting your towel so you appear respectful, and find a world humming with female voices. The air feels a touch more fragrant, as if someone scattered a handful of rose petals through the steam. It is calmer, but no less busy, as women of all ages chatter, wash, oil their hair, and exchange news. An older woman sits braiding a girl's hair into long, intricate loops, dipping her fingers into a paste scented with lavender. The girl's face glows, a combination of heat and pride, her eyes fixed on her reflection in a polished brass mirror. Next to them, a pair of sisters helps each other scrub elbows and knees with gentle loofahs. They laugh, remembering a neighbor's wedding feast where one had spilled wine straight down the front of her tunic. The retelling draws giggles from everyone nearby. Historians still argue whether women had truly equal access to public baths, or whether they had to accept odd hours and less luxurious quarters. But looking around, you sense a certain power here, a sisterhood woven together in steam and story. Farther in, a matron with silver-threaded hair massages scented oil into her calves while discussing a local merchant's grain prices. Her tone businesslike, her movements gentle. Beauty and commerce go hand in hand here, because life is rarely simple. Even in a place designed for rest, near a wall fountain, children splash each other, their delighted squeals echoing off the tiles. The bathhouse, at least in these women's hours, welcomes entire families, offering a rare place where grandmothers and granddaughters can share a pool, pass down lullabies, and wash away the day's worries together. You spot an older woman, carefully painting kohl around her eyelids, steady as a surgeon, pausing now and then to let the steam soften her skin. She looks regal, even in her simple linen cloth, as if preparing to walk straight into the emperor's palace. A group of teenagers huddles by a mirror, comparing hair oils and debating which one smells the best, laurel, myrtle, or crushed almonds. They trade tiny dabs from clay pots, giggling over the results. Their laughter rings off the marble like chimes in a breeze. The mosaic underfoot here shows dancing women, their dresses flowing in swirling patterns of blue and copper. You feel them moving with you as you walk, as though the artists meant to remind bathers of their own beauty and grace. One mother gently smooths olive oil across her daughter's shoulders, whispering something that makes the girl nod solemnly. Maybe advice about marriage, or simply about how to stand tall in the world. The sweet smell of rosewater drifts past again, layered over the sharper tang of clean skin. You breathe it in, grateful for how comforting it is, a smell that seems to quiet every sharp edge of your thoughts. A young woman scrubs her feet while talking about a dream she had last night, convinced it's a sign of good fortune. Historians still debate just how seriously dreams were taken in Byzantine daily life, but here, you suspect, they matter as much as a coin in the marketplace. The walls around you seem to hum with a different kind of peace, no competition, no showing off, just a quiet pride in the rituals of care. No one rushes. There are no hurried steps. A girl can soak until her fingers wrinkle, a mother can chat as long as she likes. If the men's hours feel like the empire in miniature, with all its politics and jokes, the women's hours feel like the empire's beating heart, where bonds are nurtured and hopes are spoken aloud. You feel a kind of calm wrap around you. Seeing women helping each other tie up hair, smoothing olive oil on dry heels, comparing cloth patterns for next week's festival. There is a rhythm here, a a language older than any scroll, older than the bathhouse itself. As you leave this space, you glance back through the steam, watching a grandmother gently lift her granddaughter into the shallow water. The girl squeals, then settles into the warm pool with a smile that could light every lamp in the hall. In that moment, you understand. The bathhouse is more than stone, more than marble, more than a clever bit of engineering. It is a place where bodies and stories and trust are washed clean together, ready to meet the world once more. You step back into the main hall, leaving behind the fragrant calm of the women's hours, and find yourself moving toward a quieter pool at the far side of the bathhouse. Here, things feel more serene still, the water gentler, the sounds softer, and the air almost reverent. This is where families gather, and where the very young and the very old find their place. You pause to watch a group of children splashing each other in a shallow marble basin, laughter ringing through the mist. One toddler stumbles, sending a tiny wave across the floor, and is scooped up by a grandmother before he can cry. The woman settles him on her lap, humming a lullaby in a language you almost recognize but can't quite place. A row of elders soaks on the other side, shoulders barely breaking the surface, their skin pink from the steady heat. They move slowly, gently stretching arms and legs, talking in low voices about the harvest, about a cousin's wedding, about whose grandchild can already recite prayers by heart. Historians still debate whether Byzantine bathhouses offered discounts for children and elders, or simply welcome them as part of the community standard. But the feeling here suggests no one would have dreamed of turning them away. One boy dares to dive under the water, popping up with a grin, hair plastered flat against his forehead. He beams as if he's just returned from exploring the bottom of the world. Nearby, a stooped old man with a heavy silver beard leans on the pool's carved ledge, rubbing olive oil carefully into his elbows. He does it with the same patience you might use to mend a favorite tunic. There is a quiet dignity in every move, as if his body deserves nothing less than total respect. No matter how old, a mother and father help their daughter practice swimming, guiding her along the warm shallows, praising each small stroke. You catch the girl's triumphant grin when she manages a clumsy dog paddle on her own. Children's voices ring bright, mixing with the softer murmur of the elders, creating a harmony that could belong in any era. Here, the generations overlap, naturally, all woven together by the soothing water. The walls of this family space are simpler, less decorated, maybe, but more welcoming for it. One section shows a mosaic of vines that seems to climb endlessly upward, reminding you that life renews itself in every child's laugh, every elder's patient nod. A woman nearby carefully wipes her elderly mother's brow with a damp cloth, checking the water's warmth on her wrist before helping her lean back against a carved dolphin. The older woman sighs, eyes drifting closed, trusting completely. It strikes you how universal these gestures are. A helping hand, a splash of water, a smile. All the complicated pieces of empire vanish here, leaving only the simplest human truths. An older boy brags about how many times he can dive without taking a breath, and a pair of elders tease him, gently reminding him that showing off is the surest way to swallow half the pool. He laughs, then tries again anyway. A warm breeze stirs the steam through an open archway, carrying the mingled scents of olive oil, honey, and fresh water. You breathe it in, feeling a peace that goes deeper than the pools. Somewhere, a soft chant begins, perhaps a prayer of thanks or a half-remembered folk song, sung in low voices that blend beautifully with the splash of children playing. Historians still argue whether bathhouses actively taught values, respect for elders, care for children, kindness among neighbors, or whether those lessons simply happen by accident in such a communal place. You suspect it doesn't matter. Here, the lessons stick, naturally, as easy as drawing a breath. You shift closer to the edge of the pool, dipping your fingers in, letting the water swirl around your knuckles. Warm, gentle, alive, just like the people here, one of the elders. Catches your eye, offering a slow, respectful nod as if to say you belong here too. You nod back, honored in a way you can't quite explain. The steam shifts, showing a grandmother now holding her granddaughter's hand, steadying her as she steps out of the water. The girl's feet slip, but the woman steadies her instantly. They share a grin that holds centuries inside it. For a moment, you simply stand still, taking in this space, where life begins and ends, where stories and memories flow from one generation to the next like warm, unhurried water. And with that sense of calm tucked into your heart, you turn, ready to explore the Bathhouses' next hidden wonder. Leaving behind the gentle family pool, you wander down a corridor lined with patterned tiles, drawn by a different kind of conversation, hushed, slightly anxious, and laced with hope. The air here smells sharper, with a faint bite of vinegar and herbs, almost medicinal. This is where the bathhouse meets the healer's corner, a place of treatment, gossip, and no small amount of superstition. You slip through an arch hung with a thin linen curtain and find a space set with wooden benches, amphorae of strange liquids, and trays of dried herbs. A pair of healers is hard at work, preparing balms while debating the best cure for a stubborn cough. You sit down curious, watching a healer mix a paste of olive oil, crushed garlic, and a dark powder you can't quite name. It smells bold enough to frighten any ailment away, even if only from sheer intimidation. Nearby, a thin man with a crooked back is being gently rubbed with warmed myrtle oil while a friend tries to cheer him up with jokes about donkey traffic near the city gates. The man winces at first, but then relaxes, letting the oil do its slow work. Historians still argue whether Byzantine bathhouse healers had any formal medical training or simply learned through trial and error, but you sense their skill is as much about faith and care as any textbook. A row of clay jars sits along one wall, labeled with faded Greek letters: mallow, rose petals, vinegar, pigeon droppings. Yes, really, each ready for some bizarre remedy. You shake your head, half in wonder, half in disbelief that anyone ever agreed to smear pigeon droppings on their scalp to chase away baldness. Yet, a man with a receding hairline sits patiently while a healer gently pats a pigeon-based mixture on his head, promising a miraculous result. You almost laugh, but the man looks so hopeful you can only wish him well. One woman soaks her feet in a copper basin filled with mint-scented water, sighing deeply as an apprentice tends to her cracked heels with a gentle rasp made from smoothed coral. Her toes curl in blissful relief. Overhead, a small vent lets in sunlight, making the clay jars glow like little lanterns. You catch a faint whiff of honey, perhaps mixed with a hint of beeswax, carried on the warm air. It smells strangely comforting. Two elders discuss their joint pain with a healer, debating whether hot compresses or cold cloths help more. Their talk is sprinkled with bits of folklore. One claims that wearing a scrap of red cloth wards off evil humors, while the other swears by garlic worn in a pouch around the neck. You smile, reminded how humans will always blend faith with fact when their bodies ache. Curious boy watches wide-eyed as a healer uses a glass cup to perform a kind of suction therapy on a man's shoulder. The flame, the whoosh of the air inside the cup, the slow purple mark rising on the skin, it all seems like a magic trick. Half scary, half marvelous. Historians still debate whether cupping was borrowed from older Greek or Persian practices, but no one doubts its popularity. The little boy claps when the glass cup pops free, leaving behind a perfectly round bruise that looks almost like a coin. The healer winks, reassuring him. It helps the blood flow, she explains, as if that is the only answer anyone should. Need. One corner of the space is stacked with folded cloths, clean, fresh, faintly scented with lavender. ready for anyone who might feel dizzy or faint. A burly bather with a scraped shin receives a quick bandage, then staggers off with a grateful nod, eager to get back to the hot pools. You pause to listen to two women, arguing gently over a recipe for a salve meant to calm headaches. Laurel or thyme? Vinegar or honey? In the end, they decide to try both, agreeing that sometimes a cure is half skill, half luck. The gentle murmur of water, the soft shuffle of sandals, the faint clinking of copper bowls, all of it combines into a strange lullaby that soothes even the most fretful patient. You breathe it in, feeling oddly reassured by this messy blend of science, superstition, and everyday kindness. Here, even the most outlandish remedy feels gentle, softened by centuries of practice and patient hands. And as you leave the healer's corner, you realize that no matter how strange the cure, the intention is always the same: to make you whole again, to comfort, to restore. You slip away from the healer's corner, still amused by the pigeon-dropping cure, and follow a corridor that seems to open into a vast, echoing hall. The air grows cooler for just a moment, then warm again, carrying a subtle tang of marble, dust, and lamp smoke. This is the place that stuns even the most jaded bathhouse visitor, the architectural heart of the entire structure. You pause at the threshold, taking in the soaring dome above you. Its great ribs of brick and stone arch overhead like the ribs of some giant sea creature, holding up a ceiling glittering with tiny glass tesserae in patterns of blue and gold. They shimmer faintly, catching even the weakest lamplight, giving the impression of a starlit sky. A deep breath leaves you a little lightheaded. This place is magnificent. Humbling. Engineers, you recall, worked near miracles to make these massive roofs stand, mixing lime mortar and perfect ratios, anchoring the pillars into bedrock, designing systems to draw away steam so it wouldn't slowly dissolve the stone. You spot little vents carved high on the dome, breathing out a gentle curl of mist like the bathhouse itself is exhaling. Historians still argue how Byzantine builders learned to push domes this wide without Roman concrete, but no one doubts their genius. Your feet slip across marble polished by centuries of sandals, the floor laid in elegant stripes of green, white, and pale honey. A faint echo follows every step, as if the walls themselves wish to whisper your movements to the next visitor. Along the walls, you notice intricate mosaics showing everyday bathhouse scenes: a boy carrying a water jug, a woman braiding her hair, a stout bather balancing on one leg to scrape oil off with a strigil. It feels warm and human, a reminder that this grandeur is still about simple people. Near a central fountain, you pause to watch clear water spill from a spout shaped like a lion's head. The water catches lamplight and seems to glow, trickling in a steady, reassuring rhythm that feels as ancient as a heartbeat. A few bathers stand nearby, marveling at the dome's geometry, pointing out how the weight of all that stone somehow rests so delicately on thin arches. You overhear someone claiming the emperor himself once came here to admire the builder's skill, praising the craftspeople with gifts of gold coins. The faint smell of wet plaster lingers, maybe from a recent repair. You run your hand across a wall, feeling tiny chips where the tesserae have been reset, and think of the artisans perched on scaffolds year after year, patiently restoring every detail. High on the dome's curve, a tiny window lets through a shaft of late afternoon sunlight, bright enough to slice straight through the rising steam. Dust motes swirl lazily in the beam, tiny dancers caught mid-step, drifting without hurry. One visitor stands under that light with arms stretched, almost in prayer, soaking up its warmth like a cat. There's something deeply peaceful about the scene, as if the stone itself is blessing the bathers with its calm. Nearby, you notice small alcoves where workers store tools for cleaning or patching cracks. A quiet reminder that this place, no matter how perfect, always needs a gentle hand to keep it alive. A man points out a crack running along one arch, telling a friend how the bathhouse survived earthquakes with only minor scars. Historians still debate whether Byzantine builders had a true science of earthquake protection, or just built so massively it happened to hold. The dome's acoustic magic catches your attention next. Voices here carry in gentle ripples, neither too loud nor too faint, as though the builders shaped every curve to hold a conversation in its arms. Someone tests it by singing a short phrase, their voice floating high and clear before falling. Back like a leaf, you can almost imagine a night here, with lamplight dancing, steam swirling, and voices lifted in song until the whole place feels like a temple. But a temple for resting bodies, not anxious souls. As you walk on, you notice a simpler mosaic tucked in a corner, a pair of sandals carefully drawn next to a folded towel. No royal symbols, no military heroes, just the mark of someone who paused here long enough to be remembered. It makes you smile, warmed by the idea that the builders wanted everyone to feel seen, even the quietest bather who might have slipped through without a name. With a last glance up at that impossible dome, you move on, heart calm, spirit lifted, grateful for the reminder that even the grandest spaces can still feel human, shaped for you, for your neighbors, and for all who ever needed a warm bath and a kind word. You ease away from the soaring dome, stepping through a lower arch into another bright space. At first glance, it looks simple. A line of benches, a few low tables. Nothing grand. But then you notice the polished marble plaques set into the walls, each etched with delicate lettering. This is the Rules Hall, the Bathhouses Code of Conduct posted for everyone to see. A bored-looking attendant sits nearby, half asleep, but perks up to wave you in. You nod, stepping closer to read the neat lines of regulation. It feels a bit like a medieval bulletin. Bored, a reminder that even the calmest oasis needs boundaries. Rule 1. No shouting or rough play in the hot pools. You grin, remembering the children earlier and how easily that rule must get bent. Rule 2. Cleanse your feet before entering shared baths. A sensible one, really, after so many dusty Byzantine streets. Rule 3. Do not hog the benches. That makes you chuckle, imagining a greedy bather sprawling out like a lazy cat while others hover nearby with tired legs. Historians still argue how strictly these bathhouse rules were enforced. Did the attendants really fine you for splashing too much? Or was it more a gentle scolding? The debate continues, but you suspect a few coppers might have changed hands. From time to time, next to the rules are small notes about lost and found items. One scratches out, bronze hairpin found near the Strigil station. Another lists, small sandal, child-sized. Even a lost necklace, noted with a polite reminder to claim it by sunset, or the bathhouse would keep it in the public fund. It's charming. In a way, these human echoes of things left behind, mingled with rules about keeping the peace. You settle on a bench for a moment, watching as a young attendant carefully polishes one of the rule plaques with a bit of olive oil rag. He seems to take pride in the letters, ensuring they stay legible, even if half the visitors probably never bother to read them. A pair of women pause near another sign listing the bathhouse's small fines. 1 copper coin for spitting, 2 for leaving a mess, 5 for insulting an attendant. You raise your brows at that. 5 coins might be enough to buy dinner. Bathhouse staff clearly valued respect. The women laugh, pointing to the line about excessive splashing, teasing each other about who might break that one first. You glance around, spotting tiny graffiti scratched into a pillar, a ship, a flower, someone's name. The marks are centuries old, but still sharp enough to read. Even here, with rules posted, people felt the need to leave their personal stories behind. Overhead, the lamps burn steadily, their glow mellow and calm. softening all these notices so they don't feel too harsh. Rules, yes, but wrapped in warmth. And community. A small boy runs through, dripping water across the polished marble. The bored attendant sighs, wagging a finger at him, but clearly won't chase him down. The boy's grandmother scolds him gently, guiding him back with a patient smile. The rules, you see, work best when everyone wants them to, a social agreement. More than strict law. Another posted sign explains the bathhouse's opening hours. Sunrise to after dark, though on festival days they might stay open well into the night. You wonder how many secrets were traded in those after-hours soaks, voices dropping to conspiratorial whispers under the lanterns. Historians still argue whether these rules changed much over the centuries, or stayed steady as the marble itself. Maybe there were a few updates as fashions changed, but the heart of them, respect, cleanliness, fairness, seems as permanent as the baths. You stand and stretch, feeling the faint ache in your shoulders from so much wandering. The rules hall may seem boring to some, but there's something deeply comforting in seeing a community's values spelled out and clear. Familiar words dot at the far end of the hall. You notice a plain wooden box where people can leave complaints or suggestions. A tiny slit in the lid invites even the shyest bather to slip in their thoughts. Maybe someone asked for hotter water, or fewer children underfoot, or more honey cakes for sale. It's oddly modern, this idea of feedback. You smile, imagining how many requests the bathhouse staff sorted through, how many small grumbles they weighed, how many they ignored with a polite shrug. As you leave the rules hall, you glance back once more. It's a reminder that no matter how beautiful the mosaics, how perfect the marble, a bathhouse is built on trust, 1,000 small agreements to be kind to one another, to share the warmth, to keep the peace. And with that sense of quiet reassurance, you head toward the next turn in this endless warren of gentle, steamy dreams. You leave the calm order of the rules hall, slipping once more into the winding corridors of marble and steam, where the voices grow hushed in a different way. Here, you sense a tension, a quiet debate humming through the warm mist. This is the place where religion meets water and where the bathhouse's very existence has occasionally been questioned. You pause near a bench where two men sit arguing softly about the meaning of purity. One, with a neatly trimmed beard, insists that Christian believers should not share water with pagans or Jews. The other waves him off with a grin, saying that dirt knows no religion and a clean body is a gift from God. Historians still argue whether Christian clergy fully accepted the public baths or simply tolerated them. Official sermons sometimes called them worldly, even immoral, but ordinary believers could rarely give them up. Who wouldn't want to be clean, warm, and relaxed after a long week? A pair of women nearby discusses whether baptism water is holier than bath water. One says no, that the bath is for the body and the church for the soul. The other wonders if the bathhouse isn't sacred in its own right, given how many people leave it healed and calm. The air seems thicker here, heavy with half-voiced questions. You watch as a young deacon glances nervously at the lion-headed fountain, then crosses himself before stepping into the pool. It is a polite compromise. You think offering a prayer before enjoying what some might call a pagan custom, a tradition. Inherited from Rome. You move past, noticing a mosaic that seems older than the others. Its colors are simpler, the faces less realistic, and the style reminds you of late Roman design. The subject? A group of bathers raising their hands, as if praising a god, or maybe just thanking the hot water. That image alone might have rattled some stricter bishops, but here, no one seems to mind. Farther along, a priest sits talking with a tradesman, their voices carrying gently over the splash of a child's laugh. They speak of confession, of honesty, and how the bathhouse sometimes reveals people's true character when masks are dropped along with their tunics. You wonder if that's really why some preachers worried about bathhouses, that the walls heard secrets, and the steam softened social boundaries that were supposed to stay rigid. A group of children races through the corridor, giggling, reminding everyone that rules about holiness rarely survive contact with a child's playful splash. Someone burns a bit of incense nearby, maybe out of habit, maybe as a quick blessing for the bathers gathered here. The sweet herbal smoke curls into the rising steam, making you feel like you've stepped into a half-forgotten temple. A man explains to his friend that the bathhouse always had its own quiet spiritual life. "See," he says, pointing to the ceiling, "cleanliness is close to godliness, no matter what the priests say." Historians still debate whether public bathing in Christian Byzantium was a true moral compromise or just a leftover bit of Roman practicality. You suspect the answer is both. Even the most devout souls get dusty. You lean against a warm marble column, letting the swirl of conversation drift past you. Nobody seems truly worried here, just gently negotiating how to balance faith with it. Everyday. It's a kind of theology you can appreciate, where forgiveness is offered with a bowl of honey cakes, and gossip is rinsed off in a plunge pool rather than a confessional. At a small table, an older woman and her daughter argue about how many times one must cross themselves before entering the water. 1? 3? 7? They settle on 3 then. Both giggle at their own fussiness. There is a strange peace in these debates. You sense that for many bathers, ritual and routine hold equal power. One helps the soul, the other helps the skin. Both good, both needed. You step aside as a young mother leads her son toward the warm pool, whispering a quick prayer as he leaps in, splashing water halfway to the ceiling. A nearby elder winces but says nothing, smiling faintly. You feel that smile in your bones. A shared understanding across the centuries that being human is complicated, messy, hopeful, imperfect, but worth tending with every kindness, whether offered in a sermon or a warm bath. As you leave this corridor, you glance back once more, catching the shimmer of lamplight across the tiles. A quiet promise lingers there. You can be clean in many ways, and each has its place in this warm marble haven. As you drift away from the religious debates, the mood shifts once more. The sun has slipped lower in the sky, sending softer, more golden light through high vents and arches. Lanterns are being lit, one by one, their flames flickering gently against the polished marble. You realize you've entered the bathhouse at night, a secret hour, a hushed hour when things grow slower, shadows lengthen, and the entire place feels like a dreaming city. The air is thicker now, richer with the mingled scents of olive oil, sweat, herbs, and warm water. You move along a hallway lined with small lamps, their smoky glow softening every sharp edge. Here in the night, the maid bathhouse is transformed. Conversations drop to whispers, laughter grows more intimate, and the sound of water echoes like a lullaby. A group of bathers, faces lit by lamplight, huddles in a quiet circle. Their talk is lower now, sprinkled with cautious glances. Rumors of trade deals, the latest tax hikes, maybe a little political plotting. The walls of the bathhouse have long heard secrets best spoken in steam. Historians still argue whether night hours were officially sanctioned or simply tolerated. After all, what better place to strike a bargain or settle a feud than half hidden behind a cloud of rose-scented mist? You watch a servant pour water for a group of men, moving like a ghost between pools, her steps silent on the wet marble. She offers warm cloths and soft words, tending them as carefully as a nurse. One bather explains in a hush how a rival shipment of pottery might be delayed by bad weather near Cyprus. Another listens intently, nodding, weighing every word. Night is when the bathhouse becomes a world apart, half a palace, half a conspirator's hideaway. The lantern light makes every movement look graceful, every face softer, more forgiving. You pause near a low bench where two women lean in close, sharing a secret that draws tears, then gentle laughter. The bathhouse, you realize, holds all of life, from heartbreak to hope, carried in a single breath of steam. A group of musicians slips in, their small instruments wrapped in cloth to protect them from the damp. They find a quiet corner and begin to play. A soft flute, a slow drum beat, a drifting, mournful song. It wraps around you like a second warmth, inviting even the shyest soul to close their eyes and rest. You wander deeper, past a pool whose water has gone still as glass. Its surface reflects the lanterns like tiny stars, and bathers float in slow circles, faces turned to the dome above, as if looking for answers written among the TESSERAE. One father soothes a crying child, rocking him until the boy falls asleep. Against his chest, safe in the hush, a pair of guards, off duty, by the look of their simple linen wraps, stand quietly in the corner, trading news about patrols and rumors of raids near the city walls. Their shoulders finally relax as they sink into the water, letting the night erase their tension. You sense a hush in every corner, an unspoken agreement that the night should be respected. No loud games now, no raucous wrestling, only a drifting. Calm, where even your thoughts seem to slow down. Historians still debate whether night bathers were wealthier or simply those too busy to come by day. But here, the dividing lines fade. Everyone is equal in the glow of the lanterns, half sleeping, half listening to the drip of water. You spot a brazier smoldering near a doorway, its faint coals perfuming the air with cedar smoke it blends with. The scent of the Bathhouse oils, a soft, woody note that makes the entire hall feel like a cozy dream. A woman nearby tells a friend how she feels closest to God in these hours, not in a church, but here, floating in warm water, watched by the stars. You nod quietly, sharing that sense, as you ease toward another shallow pool, dipping your toes in. The heat feels different at night, deeper somehow, as if it carries you even closer to sleep. Steam curls around your shoulders, thicker now, gathering like a blanket. Somewhere far off, a bell chimes, marking an hour that no one seems to care about. Here, time dissolves. You close your eyes, hearing the faint music, the water's soft hush, the breathing of so many dreamers sharing this calm. And you feel the bathhouse itself breathe too, a living place, sheltering its guests in nights. Gentle embrace. The hush of night grows even deeper as you wander farther, each step cushioned by the familiar warmth of marble still gently heated from the day. The bathhouse has slipped into a strange, serene half-sleep, lit by a scattering of lanterns that leave wide pools of shadow along the walls. But tonight, something feels different. A quiet melancholy hangs in the air. You pass a group of men talking in low, thoughtful tones about the empire itself. How taxes have grown harsher, how the roads are not as safe, how pirates have dared closer to the coast. Their faces, half lost in steam, look tired. A woman nearby sighs, telling her friend that fewer merchants come through the city gates lately, and that even the honey for the bathhouse pastries has gotten thin and sour. It seems the bathhouse, this great living heart of the city, feels the empire's slow fading just as keenly as its marble bones. You settle on a ledge by one pool, watching the water ripple with a sad kind of patience. Cracks line the tiles in tiny spiderwebs. Nothing dangerous yet, but a quiet reminder that time, like water, seeps into everything. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were repaired, less often during the empire's decline or if people simply lost the will to maintain them. Here, you see hints of both, a patch of missing mosaic, a loose lamp hook, an attendant using an old rag rather than a fresh linen cloth. Yet the bathhouse holds on, refusing to surrender its dignity. You watch a stooped old man slip carefully into the water, closing his eyes as if praying the world beyond the bathhouse walls might hold off for just another hour. A girl helps her grandmother down marble steps worn nearly hollow by centuries of feet, and their smiles light the gloom like a lantern. You listen to two traders argue about whether it's worth crossing the Black Sea anymore, how brigands and higher port fees eat up every profit. Their voices are low, resigned, and you wonder if even their ancestors once spoke this way when Rome began to crumble. But then, just as your heart begins to sink, a group of children rushes by, still shrieking with delight. They slip and splash, ignoring all the signs of decay, reminding you that laughter somehow always survives. One boy tosses a clay ball that skids across the water, making waves that dance across cracked tiles and leave them gleaming in the lamplight. A moment, you believe the bathhouse breathes a small sigh of relief. You lean back against the wall, letting the warmth creep into your shoulders, and study the grand columns around you. A few show chips and repairs in mismatched marble, yet they still stand strong, holding up the soaring dome above. It is a powerful lesson. Time will always nibble at greatness, but a place built on comfort and kindness can outlast even an empire. Somewhere in a far corner, an attendant gathers, a frayed basket of used towels, folding them as neatly as new. You catch his tired eyes, but he still manages a polite nod. This place is his pride too, no matter how threadbare. A thin breeze slips through a high window, stirring the lantern flames and bringing with it the scent of city smoke, a reminder of the world outside, waiting with its worries. You sense that tomorrow these same bathers will dress again in their public masks, their merchant tunics, their sandals with broken straps, pretending the empire is as grand as ever. But tonight, here in the warmth and the gentle hush, they can set that burden down. Historians still debate how long the Byzantines clung to their bathhouses as everything else fell apart. Some say the baths stayed open until nearly the final days, places of stubborn, joyful resistance against decay. You choose to believe that, because even as you rest here now, you feel hope pulsing through the marble, like a soft heartbeat refusing to stop. You stand, stretch, and walk onward through the darkening hall, the lanterns flickering behind you. And you understand, the bathhouse may fade, but its spirit will echo on in every warm stone, every quiet kindness, every gentle splash. That says, you are welcome here. You step from the hushed gloom of the fading empire into another wing of the bathhouse that feels haunted, not in the sense of ghosts with chains and moans, but in the sense of memory itself breathing through the warm stones. There is an eerie quiet here. The pools lie still, barely rippling, the air thicker, as though 1,000 sighs have gathered and refused to leave. The lanterns burn low, their flames casting long, soft shadows that seem to bend around pillars in impossible shapes. It feels as if time has pooled here too. Refusing to move forward, you walk past a crumbling mosaic of dolphins, their blue tiles dulled and missing in places. A pale figure carved in the marble leans sideways, the artist's dream of perfect proportion long since chipped by careless sandals. And yet, you sense something gentle in these flaws, a record of everyone who ever passed through, everyone who ever forgot their worries in the water, everyone who ever trusted the bathhouse to hold their secrets. Historians still argue whether later generations even understood how precious these places were, or if they simply let them decay, blind to the echoes. You stand by a pool whose water looks dark in the dim lamplight, reflecting nothing but shadows. You imagine how, 100 years from now, someone might stand where you stand, hearing only silence and seeing only a broken arch, yet still feeling the same warmth somehow clinging to the stones. It is a comforting thought, that a kindness, a place to gather, to wash, to laugh, could echo long after the empire itself fell quiet. You catch a faint breeze stirring through the columns, lifting the edge of a towel someone forgot. It flutters like a little ghost, dancing across the floor before settling again, as if reluctant to leave Dot in one corner. A line of hooks still holds a few copper oil jars, their sides tarnished but still shining when the lamplight hits them. You wonder who last filled them, who last tipped the fragrant oil into their hands, who last sighed with relief as the heat worked its calm magic. A pair of attendants passes by, older than most, moving slowly as if weighed down by all the years. They have served here. They do their work gently, smoothing folds in linen cloths, checking the temperature of a spout that still flows warm. Their hands tremble, but their pride is steady. One tells the other, "It will last another year, maybe two," and the other just nods, not wanting to speak the darker answer. You trail a finger across a small carved dolphin on the pool's ledge, its nose worn nearly smooth by countless other curious hands. A kind of prayer lives there, you think, pressed into the marble by everyone who ever needed hope. A soft voice behind you recites a line of poetry, something about how water carries away sorrow. You turn, but cannot see who spoke. It might have been your own imagination. Historians still debate whether bathhouses were built to last centuries or simply to comfort one lifetime at a time. Standing here, with the warm stones breathing against your toes, you suspect they were meant for both. You step carefully to avoid a loose tile, hearing it click against the foundation with a hollow, tired note. Even that feels oddly soothing, like a heartbeat too faint to fail completely. Somewhere farther in the bathhouse, laughter still echoes, the younger, louder pools reminding you that this gentle ruin is only one layer of the place. Life continues. Elsewhere, stronger, still bustling, refusing to be afraid, you glance back, letting your eyes linger on the columns, the crumbling dolphin, the hush. It is not sadness you feel, but a kind of respect. These walls have heard centuries of stories, carried them, held them, and somehow still stand. In that, there is something more powerful than any emperor's decree, a promise that what is shared kindly, what is built with thought and skill, can echo beyond any ruin. You take one last look at the dark water, where a faint shimmer of lamplight dances, and walk on, carrying those echoes with you. You leave the dim, quiet echoes of the worn pools behind and move back toward a hall you nearly missed before. A calm, softly glowing place where the bathhouse seems to exhale a final, contented breath. This is the final soak, the last stop of the ritual, where bathers come to finish their visit in peace. The water here is warm but gentle. No biting heat, no icy shock. Just a perfectly comforting embrace that cradles you like a lullaby. You ease yourself down the marble steps, letting the water creep over your toes, then your ankles, then up to your chest. Immediately, your muscles sigh. The day's journey through hot and cold, rough and soft, gossip and laughter, melts into a single slow drift of calm. A few other bathers float nearby, eyes half closed, their faces peaceful. No one talks, no one needs to. The silence feels almost sacred, as though every worry has been steamed out of the air, leaving only kindness behind. You lean your head against the warm stone ledge, letting the water cradle your heartbeat into something so steady, so serene. You can barely tell where your pulse ends and the gentle ripples begin. Above you, the dome seems to shimmer in the lantern light, its mosaic stars glowing like tiny candles left burning through the night. A reminder, perhaps, that the world can go on, no matter how dark the corners might feel. Historians still debate if this final dip was ever required or simply suggested, but you can feel in your bones why people ended their bathhouse visits. Here, it is the graceful bow, the closing note, the moment that reminds you. You survived the week, you washed away what burdened you, and you are ready to start again. Your fingertips trace lazy patterns on the water, stirring small spirals that slip away from you without hurry. A cool breath of air drifts in from a half-open window, mixing with the warm steam, and you realize you can smell a faint hint of the sea beyond the city walls. You close your eyes, imagining the port busy with ships, the sound of sails, the creak of oars, all that bustle held safely beyond these walls, at least for tonight. A mother soaks next to you with her child, teaching her a simple prayer to whisper as she leaves the water. The girl repeats each word solemnly, then smiles as she dunks her chin beneath the surface. Someone slips quietly into the pool beside you. No splash, just the smallest swirl of ripples, a silent companion in this communal peace. You think of the endless lives that passed through this place, merchants and monks, bakers and soldiers, children and elders, each leaving a trace of warmth behind. The bathhouse holds it all. The laughter, the tears, the games, the healing, the whispered fears, the shared hopes. And in this last soak, you feel every one of those layers settle gently over you like a woven blanket of humanity. You allow yourself to rest there, letting the water rock you with its small waves, and know that when you stand up again, you will feel reborn. Lanterns flicker one by one, their flames growing lower. And you realize the bathhouse, too, is winding down, preparing for night's final hush. You breathe in, slow and calm, letting your shoulders loosen one last time, and promise to carry the stillness with you when you step back into the world. Water stirs softly around you, warm, forgiving, and welcoming, just as it was the moment you arrived. You know you will return, drawn by this gentle space that asks nothing of you but to rest, to be human, to remember you belong. And so, with one final sigh, you slip beneath the water, letting it close over you like a lullaby. As you rise from that last soothing soak, your body feels as light as a drifting leaf, and the marble floor meets your bare feet with a calm, familiar warmth. The lamps have grown faint now, their flames dancing softly, barely holding back the darkness of night. You gather your towel close, walking slowly through the quiet arches one last time. Each echo of your footsteps reminds you how ancient and patient these walls are, how they have seen thousands come and go, each leaving a small echo of their dreams behind. The bathhouse has wrapped you in kindness tonight, washing away your worries, carrying away the heavy dust of days and weeks and months. You can feel the hush settling into your bones, gentle as a lullaby, reminding you that you are safe, that you are welcome, that you are part of a story much older than any single name. Outside, the night air is cool and forgiving, and a faint breeze brushes your hair, fresh and quiet. The city beyond waits with its noise and its clamor, but for now, you stand at the threshold of peace. Breathe in slowly and let that calm stay with you. Feel your shoulders grow soft, your chest loosen, your mind uncoil from the tight little knots of daily thought. You are washed clean. You are ready to rest. And so, with one last glance back at the lantern shimmering against the ancient dome, you step into the night, heart calm, spirit steady, mind wrapped in a hush that will carry you all the way to sleep.